Okay, let's unpack this. Elon Musk, we all know the name, right? Tesla, SpaceX, the whole shebang.
Definitely. Hard to miss these days.
But way before all that, there was Zip2, his very first company. And here's where it gets, well, really interesting. It sold for a cool $307 million.
Wow. That sounds like a massive success story on its own.
You'd think so. A lifetime achievement for most people, right? But for Musk, apparently, frustration, even disappointment.
Huh. $307 million in disappointment. That's quite a contrast.
Exactly. That contrast right there, it tells us something crucial, I think. External success doesn't always equal internal satisfaction, especially, for people driven by a bigger vision.
That disconnect is fascinating. It immediately makes you wonder what really drives someone like Musk. A huge financial win, and yet a sense of being unfulfilled.
Right. It really highlights that for some people, maybe the impact of the journey itself is way more significant than just the final payout.
Yeah, the monetary outcome isn't the whole picture. Not by a long shot for some.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we've got these excerpts from the story of Elon Musk's first company. Think of this as your express ticket to understanding those really early days.
Good source material. Gets right into it.
Yeah. And our mission here, basically, to figure out what really motivated Musk back then, the hurdles he faced getting Zip2 off the ground, and crucially, why that huge payout still left him feeling, well, let down. Ready to dive in.
Absolutely. This first venture, it's like looking at the blueprint, isn't it? It gives us a vital lens to understand the DNA of his later successes, the foundational lessons.
Totally. So let's rewind. It's 1995, Silicon Valley. We're talking the very, very beginning of the consumer internet.
A wild time. The dot-com boom was just starting to bubble up.
And our source says Musk had just finished degrees in physics and economics at Penn. He was even lined up for a PhD program at Stanford.
Physics and economics, that's a powerful combination right there. A grasp of fundamental principles and market forces.
Yeah, and thinking about a PhD, that suggests some serious intellectual curiosity, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. A capacity for deep, rigorous thinking, which makes his next move even more striking.
Right, because the catalyst hits. Netscape's IPO. Boom.
Yes. That was a huge moment. Really put the internet on the map for Wall Street and, well, everyone else.
Suddenly, the internet wasn't just some academic network or, a niche thing. It was potentially big business. An IPO, just for listeners, that's when a private company first offers shares to the public, a major sign of success.
And a signal of massive potential wealth creation, which wasn't lost on Musk.
Not at all, because after just 2 days at Stanford, he was out. Dropped the PhD plans.
2 days. It really underscores his bias towards action, towards seizing an opportunity when he sees it. The Netscape IPO is like this giant flashing sign saying, now.
He clearly recognized a massive shift was happening and just jumped.
Precisely. It showed that acute awareness of these transformative trends and, importantly, a willingness to ditch even prestigious plans for something more compelling.
Okay, so the timing was right. But the idea for Zip2, you might think it just, popped into his head, some random internet brainstorm.
That's often the myth around these things, isn't it?
Yeah, but our source reveals it was actually sparked by something kind of mundane. He saw a really terrible pitch during a summer internship, a Yellow Pages rep completely fumbling an online listing pitch.
Interesting. So a negative experience was the trigger, seeing what doesn't work.
Yeah. Talk about seeing a gap in the market, right?
It highlights how identifying inadequacy can be just as powerful as a flash of brilliance. He saw the traditional approach to local business directories was just broken for this new digital world.
Suggests an early knack for not just seeing tech's potential, but also critically looking at existing systems and spotting the weaknesses.
Exactly. So he teams up with his brother, Kimball.
Right. And their core concept is actually pretty simple, but, powerful for the time. A searchable web directory, connecting people to local businesses, and crucially, with directions.
Makes sense. Finding stuff locally was still a pain.
Totally. Yeah. And Musk had this very down-to-earth way of explaining it. He apparently said, everyone should be able to find the closest pizza place and figure out how to get there.
I love that quote. It really shows a user-centric mindset, even way back then.
Yeah. It wasn't about complex tech for its own sake, was it?
No, it was about using this new thing, the internet, to solve a very practical, everyday problem, making people's lives simpler. That's powerful.
So they had the idea. Building it, though, whole different story. First step. They actually bought a local business directory database.
Okay, so they got the raw data somehow.
Yeah, and then they negotiated free access to Navteq's digital mapping software. Imagine the hustle involved in that.
Wow, free access. That's huge. Securing that mapping data early on must have been absolutely critical.
Gave them a real edge, presumably.
Oh, definitely. A key piece of functionality others wouldn't easily replicate. It shows that proactive, resourceful approach right from the start. They weren't just coding, they were deal-making.
But then came convincing people, businesses, potential customers. Forget about it.
Right. Back in 95, the internet was still pretty fringe for most small businesses.
Exactly. They just didn't get it. And venture capitalists, they were hesitant too. Musk himself said, looking back in 95, there weren't very many people on the internet. And certainly nobody was making any money at all. Most people thought the internet was going to be a fad.
It sounds almost unbelievable now, doesn't it? But that skepticism was real.
Totally. What does that tell us about the environment they were launching into?
It just underscores how incredibly early they were. They weren't just building a product, they were having to convince people of the internet's basic value for commerce. That takes immense conviction.
Seeing a future others couldn't grasp yet.
Precisely. So with VCs hesitant, funding was tight.
Understatement. Musk apparently had about $2,000 to his name. Kimball had a bit more from selling his share in a painting franchise, College Pro Painters.
Okay, so personal savings mostly.
Yeah, and their dad, Errol Musk, chipped in $28,000. And that was basically it.
Wow, truly bootstrapping, putting their own very limited money on the line like that.
It says a lot about their belief in the idea, doesn't it?
Absolutely, volumes. It also forces a certain discipline, extreme efficiency, making every single dollar count. Frugality wasn't a choice, it was survival.
And lean doesn't even begin to cover it. Musk called it a ridiculously tiny burn rate. That's, how fast they were spending cash.
So what did that look like in practice?
Sleeping on futons in the office, showering at the local YMCA. Musk even joked he was in the best shape of his life then.
Talk about dedication, just living and breathing the company 24/7.
What's the key takeaway from that kind of extreme resourcefulness, do you think?
I think it shows how severe constraints can actually fuel innovation. When you have nothing, you're forced to find creative solutions, eliminate all waste. That early discipline can be a massive advantage later.
Makes sense. And get this, they shared one computer between them initially.
One computer? How did that even work?
Musk coded at night, and then during the day, that same machine acted as the server for the website.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Just patching things together.
Totally. And their first internet connection, a cheap dial-up modem. Then, when that wasn't enough, they literally drill a hole through the wall to tap into the connection of an internet service provider, an ISP, in the office downstairs.
Laugh slightly. You can't make this stuff up. Drilling holes for internet access.
Right. What does that kind of raw ingenuity tell us?
It just highlights this incredible problem-solving mindset, a refusal to be stopped by obstacles. They weren't waiting for permission or perfect conditions. They were finding these scrappy, unconventional ways to just get it done.
Okay, so they're building this thing on a shoestring. How did they actually start getting clients, making money?
Well, they hired the sales team. But again, lean, it was commission-based.
So pay for performance.
Exactly. Going door to door, trying to sell sponsored listings to local businesses. Kind of old school hustle meets new tech.
And here's the kicker. Because their expenses were practically zero, they actually hit positive cash flow pretty early on, even with fairly low revenue.
That's huge. Even small positive cash flow is a massive signal.
And our sources, that really appealed to potential investors later. Why was that specific point, being cash flow positive so early, so important?
Because it demonstrates a viable business model, even at that tiny scale. It proved the concept showed the company could actually generate more money than it spent, which drastically reduces the perceived risk for anyone thinking of investing.
It validated that people would actually pay for this thing.
Exactly. A crucial proof point for any startup.
So, okay, they proved they could build something with basically nothing. That impressive scrappiness, plus the internet buzz finally starting to grow. It eventually caught the eye of the venture capital world.
The VCs started paying attention.
Yeah. And Musk, apparently ever the showman, even built this elaborate casing around their standard PC server to make it look like a mini supercomputer when investors visited.
Smiling, really, just for show.
Seems so. And maybe it worked, or maybe it was the underlying progress, but they landed $3 million from More David O. Ventures in early '96. A huge step up.
Okay, serious capital, finally. But you mentioned a catch earlier.
Ah, yes. The catch. There were strings attached to that money, big ones.
What were the conditions?
The investors insisted Musk give up day-to-day operational control. They brought in a more experienced executive, Rich Sorkin, as CEO.
Ouch. That's tough for a founder.
And his own share, his ownership stake in the company, was reduced. He was basically demoted to Chief Technology Officer, CTO.
You can imagine how that went down. For someone who'd poured everything in, lived in the office, handing over the reins like that.
Unsurprisingly, our source says he was not thrilled. Not at all. It was his baby.
But he took the deal.
He took the deal, knew they needed that capital injection to actually grow, to scale up beyond, one shared computer and a drilled hole in the wall.
A necessary evil, perhaps, from his perspective then.
Maybe. Now, under Sorkin, the new CEO, Zip2's strategy shifted quite significantly.
How so?
They moved away from trying to directly sign up thousands of individual local businesses. Instead, they pivoted to providing a platform for newspapers to create their own online local directories.
Ah, interesting. Partnering with established media.
Yeah, big players. The New York Times Company, Chicago Tribune, Knight Ridder, Hearst Corporation.
So basically licensing their technology to the papers.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
What was the logic there? Why pivot towards these, old media giants?
Well, it was a strategic move, really. Newspapers back then still had significant local reach, established sales forces already calling on businesses, and a degree of credibility. Partnering let Zip2 scale much faster by leveraging all that existing infrastructure.
Right, piggybacking on their networks.
Exactly. Zip2 essentially became the tech provider enabling traditional media's first awkward steps online. Our source even calls Zip2 a kind of white knight for print publishing. This was just before Craigslist really arrived and, changed everything for them.
Newspapers had money then and knew they had to do something online, even if they weren't sure what.
And Zip2 offered them a ready-made solution.
This shift definitely fueled growth. They finally had the funds to hire proper software engineers.
Okay, build out the team.
Yeah. And guess what the first major task for these new engineers was?
Uh-oh. Let me guess. Dealing with the original code.
Bingo. They basically had to rewrite most of Musk's original code. Apparently, his self-taught style, while it worked initially, was described as a hairball, just a tangled, undocumented mess.
McCuckles. The classic founder code problem. Happened all the time.
What does that illustrate about scaling a tech startup, though?
It really highlights that critical transition point. You go from needing individual brilliance and just getting something working, like Musk did, to needing robust, maintainable, scalable systems. As you grow, you need professional engineering practices. Code needs to be readable, documented, testable. Things a solo founder hacking away at night might, understandably, skip.
The hairball couldn't support the growth.
Pretty much. It needed to be re-architected for a larger team and a bigger platform.
So, new strategy, companies growing, but new challenges pop up, especially around leadership, team dynamics.
The people side, often the hardest part.
Apparently. Musk, even as CTO, had this habit of rewriting his programmer's code, like after hours, without telling them.
Oof. That's not ideal for morale.
No kidding. Plus, he was known for intense micromanagement and pretty blunt, sometimes harsh criticism.
Doesn't sound like a recipe for a happy team.
Not really. Our source even draws a line, suggesting maybe his childhood experiences dealing with bullies might have impacted his communication style back then. Who knows? But clearly there were issues.
It points to a key lesson, doesn't it, for any tech visionary founder?
Reaches.
That as the company grows, leadership skills have to evolve too. Technical vision is crucial, but building, motivating, empowering a team becomes just as vital, maybe more so. Communication, trust, delegation, they're not optional for scaling.
Yeah, seems like that was a learning curve. And meanwhile, the conflict between Musk and Sorkin, the CEO, is growing.
Over strategy.
Yeah. Musk felt they were just propping up the old guard media. He wanted Zip2 to reach consumers directly, make the internet more exciting, not just be a back end for newspapers.
A fundamental clash in vision, then.
Definitely. It came to a head in 1998. Sorkin tried to merge Zip2 with a competitor, CitySearch.
Okay, a potential exit or consolidation?
Musk actually agreed initially. But then, just before it closed, he apparently changed his mind and tried to stage a coup.
Shit.
He rallied support to oust Sorkin and get himself reinstated as CEO.
Wow. A boardroom battle. What does that power struggle really reveal? Well, it clearly shows Musk's ambition, his unwavering belief in his vision for the company, and his desire for control. He wasn't willing to just go along with a plan, even one he'd initially agreed to, if he felt it wasn't the right direction.
He wanted to be driving the bus.
Absolutely. It speaks to that deep conviction entrepreneurs often have, and a willingness to fight hard for their ideas, even if it gets messy.
The coup failed, though. The board sided with Sorkin, but then things took another turn.
What happened?
Instead of the City Search merger, the board decided to sell Zip2 outright to Compaq.
Compaq, the computer company.
Yeah, they wanted Zip2's technology to beef up their web portal. Alta Vista? Remember Alta Vista?
Vaguely. Wow, okay. So Compaq bought them. Was Musk involved in that decision?
Nope. Apparently, he wasn't even consulted on the final sale decision. And he certainly wasn't planning on sticking around after the acquisition. He was already mentally on to the next thing.
Interesting. His immediate readiness to just move on. What does that say?
It suggests the sale, especially done without his input, probably felt like a betrayal of his original vision, right? For him, maybe the journey achieving his goals mattered more than just cashing out under someone else's terms.
A forward-looking mindset, always focused on the next mountain to climb rather than dwelling on past outcomes, even seemingly successful ones like a $307 million sale.
Exactly. Which brings us back to that idea of failure. Despite the massive price tag, Musk often talks about failure being essential. He famously said, failure is an option here. If things are not failing, you are not innovating enough.
It's a fascinating perspective.
How do you read that, applying it to Zip2, which most people would see as anything but a failure?
I think for Musk, failure in that context isn't just about losing money. It's about maybe not reaching the full potential he envisioned or not pushing boundaries hard enough. It's about the process of innovation. If you're not hitting setbacks, maybe you're playing it too safe.
So Zip2, while financially successful, maybe felt like a failure in terms of ambition or ultimate impact from his point of view.
Possibly. It ties into that tolerance for risk and learning from mistakes, which seems absolutely core to how he operates.
And he does seem to have learned. He looks back at Zip2 with some pretty harsh self-critique, saying he was very naive and much stupider back then, wishing he could give himself a slap on the face.
Strong words. What did he feel he got wrong?
A lot seems to center on communication and understanding other people.
Yeah.
He realized, he said, even if they would like to behave like you, they don't necessarily have all the assumptions or information that you have in your mind.
The curse of knowledge, almost. Assuming everyone sees the world exactly as you do.
Right. He continued, you have to put yourself in a position where you say, well, how would this sound? Knowing what they know. That's a pretty profound lesson to take away.
Incredibly significant, that self-awareness.
Right.
It shows a real capacity for learning and growth, not just technically, but in terms of leadership and empathy. Recognizing those shortcomings and actively working on them, that's crucial.
And likely contributed massively to his later successes, right? You can't build SpaceX or Tesla without being able to communicate a vision and understand different perspectives.
Absolutely. Technical brilliance alone rarely scales an empire.
So ultimately, Zip2, despite his frustrations with losing control and the final outcome, it wasn't a waste. Far from it.
No, it provided two critical things. First, the financial capital. His share of the $307 million wasn't small, even after being diluted.
Gave him seed money for the next thing.
Exactly, which was X.com, the online bank that eventually merged and became PayPal. And second, maybe even more importantly, it provided those crucial hard-won lessons learned from the disappointments and conflicts.
The stupider version of him learned things the smarter version needed.
You could say that. And what did he do right after the sale, besides planning X.com?
Ah, yes. He bought a new place, a condo, and a McLaren F1.
The fastest production car in the world at the time.
Pretty symbolic of his ambition. What do you say? What does that purchase tell us?
Well, it certainly underscores that drive, that penchant for pushing limits, for top-tier engineering, maybe a tangible reward for all the intense effort and frustration of Zip2, but also it suggests he wasn't planning on slowing down. Aiming high right out of the gate again.
Yes, setting the stage. So for you, the listener, wrapping this up, the key takeaway here is probably that Zip2 wasn't just, a simple stepping stone to wealth for Elon Musk. It was more like a crucible.
A crucible, yeah, that's a good word for it.
A place where these really crucial lessons in tech, in business strategy, and maybe especially in leadership were forged, often through some pretty difficult, frustrating experiences.
And that contrast we started with, the big payout versus the internal dissatisfaction, it really hammers home that for certain kinds of innovators, true fulfillment comes from chasing that grand vision, not just the financial scorecard.
Exactly. This deep dive really illustrates how even ventures that look like huge triumphs from the outside can feel incomplete, maybe even like failures to their creators if they don't quite match up to the original dream.
It underscores the importance of having your own definition of success, right? Your own internal compass, not just relying on external validation like headlines or bank balances.
Well put. And that brings us nicely to our final thought for you to consider. Think about this. How often do we automatically equate financial success with, well, ultimate fulfillment?
It's the common narrative, isn't it?
It is. And maybe consider how those early ventures or even projects or jobs in your own life, the ones that maybe felt disappointing or didn't quite hit the mark you aimed for, how might they actually be the most powerful catalysts, the things that teach you the most?
The failures that fuel future innovation and achievement.
Exactly. So what does success truly mean to you? And how might some of your own past experiences, maybe even the ones you label failures, be subtly redefining that definition right now, pushing you towards something perhaps even greater down the road?
Something to mull over. Those early struggles often contain the most valuable lessons.